The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the faint murmur of morning chatter and the clinking of cups. The restaurant, a high-end downtown cafe bathed in soft golden light, was already bustling with businessmen in suits and women in designer heels. But amidst the polished laughter and expensive fragrances, a man moved quietly between tables, a man whose eyes carried exhaustion deeper than sleep could cure. His name was Daniel. He was 36, a single father, and a waiter who smiled not because life was kind, but because his little daughter needed him to keep going. He balanced a tray with trembling fingers, the scars of old burns still visible on his wrist, reminders of long shifts and silent struggles. This morning he didn't know that one spilled cup of coffee would change everything. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Every small gesture of support helps us spread more heart-touching stories like this one. Daniel had been working double shifts for months. His daughter Emily, only 6, was battling a rare heart condition that demanded expensive medication. The hospital bills kept piling up, and every time he received a call from the billing department, it felt like another weight dropped on his chest. He never told anyone, not his co-workers, not his manager. He just worked silently, praying every night that somehow he'd make it through another week. His world revolved around Emily, her laughter, her bedtime stories, the way she called him my hero. She didn't know that her hero sometimes cried quietly in the kitchen when she slept. That day, the restaurant had a special reservation, a group of high-profile executives from one of the largest tech firms in the city. The owner had warned everyone to be on their best behavior. The woman leading the meeting was CEO Vanessa Grant, known for her sharp intellect, immaculate style, and reputation for being ruthlessly efficient. When she walked in, every head turned. Her heels clicked like authority, her perfume left a trail of confidence. To most, she was intimidating. To Daniel, she was just another customer he had to serve with a polite smile and a steady hand. But his hands weren't steady that day. The night before, Emily had suffered a sudden episode. He had stayed at the hospital until dawn, watching her struggle to breathe, praying to a God he wasn't even sure still listened. He came straight to work without sleep, his shirt still faintly smelling of antiseptic and fear. His mind was a blur of worry, about the hospital bill due that evening, about whether he'd get home in time to see her smile again. As he approached the CEO's table carrying a tray with steaming coffee and pastries, the world seemed to slow down. His heart pounded, his vision dimmed, and the tray slipped slightly in his grasp. In that split second, everything shattered. The porcelain cup tipped, coffee splashed across the pristine white blouse of Vanessa Grant, and silence fell over the cafe. Every eye turned toward him. Vanessa stood up instantly, her eyes flashing with disbelief and anger. Her designer blouse was stained, her mourning ruined. The entire staff froze, afraid to move. Daniel stood there, mortified, whispering apologies he barely had the strength to speak. His hands shook as he tried to wipe the spill, but she stepped back sharply, her expression cold and cutting. "Do you even realize what you've done?" Her tone was sharp, commanding. The other customers looked away awkwardly. Daniel could only bow his head, his voice barely audible, as he apologized again and again. The manager rushed over, panic in his eyes, apologizing profusely to the CEO and promising that the waiter would be dealt with immediately. Daniel felt his heart collapse. One mistake, one moment of exhaustion, and he was about to lose the only job keeping his daughter alive. He stood still, waiting for the inevitable. But then something unexpected happened. Vanessa looked closer, not at the stain on her blouse, but at Daniel himself. She saw the dark circles under his eyes, the trembling in his hands, the pale exhaustion that couldn't be faked. Something about him didn't fit the picture of carelessness. Her anger began to melt into something else, curiosity. She asked the manager to wait and turned to Daniel, her voice calmer but firm. "Why are you shaking?" Daniel hesitated. He had promised himself never to bring his personal life into work. but the words came out before he could stop them. He whispered about Emily, how she was in the hospital, how he hadn't slept, how he was just trying to earn enough to buy her medicine. He spoke not to defend himself, but because the truth was too heavy to hold inside any longer. The cafe went quiet again, this time with a different kind of silence. The kind that carries empathy. Vanessa froze. Her expression softened completely. She remembered the nights she spent in hospitals too, years ago, when her own son was fighting for his life after a car accident. She had lost him when he was just 8. It was the pain that had hardened her, that had turned her into the unbreakable CEO people feared today. Now looking at Daniel, she saw herself. The same desperation, the same love, the same helplessness. Without another word, she reached into her handbag, took out a card and handed it to him. "Come to this address after your shift," she said quietly. Everyone watched as she left, leaving behind a silence filled with curiosity and whispers. Daniel stood there in disbelief, holding the card like it was a lifeline. That evening, after work, he went to the address, a towering glass building with the name Grant Technologies gleaming at the top. He felt out of place among the security guards and marble floors, but the receptionist welcomed him kindly, saying the CEO was expecting him. When he entered her office, Vanessa was there, not as the powerful businesswoman from the cafe, but as a human being. She smiled gently and offered him a seat. She told him she had called the hospital, verified Emily's condition, and wanted to help. Daniel couldn't believe his ears. Vanessa explained that she would cover Emily's medical bills through the company's charity wing and offer Daniel a stable administrative job with better pay and hours that allowed him to be with his daughter. He was speechless. Tears filled his eyes, but no words came. For the first time in years, Daniel felt like life had stopped fighting him. He broke down, thanking her through tears. Vanessa stood and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. She said quietly, "Sometimes fate brings us together in the strangest ways. You spilled coffee on me, but maybe it was never an accident." Weeks passed, and true to her word, Vanessa's company helped fund Emily's surgery. The little girl recovered beautifully, and Daniel often brought her to visit Vanessa at her office. The cold, intimidating CEO everyone once feared would light up whenever Emily ran into her arms. In time they became like family, bound not by blood but by shared loss and kindness. Daniel still remembered that morning, the spill, the fear, the shame. But now he saw it differently. That spilled cup of coffee wasn't a mistake. It was grace in disguise, a small act that led to healing 2 broken hearts at once. Vanessa, who had once buried her grief behind boardrooms, found a reason to smile again. And Daniel, who had almost lost hope, found a second chance, not just for himself, but for the little girl who called him her hero. Life has a strange way of weaving miracles through accidents. Sometimes what looks like disaster is just destiny wearing a disguise. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world how powerful compassion can be.